begins not as a simple police story, but as a study of moral tension embedded within the rhythms of a city that never fully reveals itself. And The Streets of San Francisco from 1972 stands as one of those rare television works that uses the structure of procedural storytelling to explore the complicated emotional and ethical terrain of law enforcement rather than merely celebrating it, presenting its central characters as professionals shaped by experience and doubt rather than as flawless figures of authority. And what strikes me most when revisiting the series is how deliberately it frames the idea of competence alongside vulnerability, particularly through the evolving relationship between the seasoned detective and his younger partner, whose differing perspectives create a quiet but persistent dialogue about justice, patience, and the cost of doing the job well in a city that constantly tests one's resolve. The opening sequences of the series establish a San Francisco that feels textured and lived in, not as a postcard but as a network of neighborhoods where stories intersect unpredictably, and the cinematography frequently lingers just long enough on streets, storefronts, and passing faces to suggest that every investigation is rooted in a broader social context, and this attention to environment becomes essential to understanding the thematic core of A Good Cop. But because the title itself implies a contradiction, a recognition that even those committed to fairness must navigate personal bias, institutional pressure, and the unpredictable consequences of their actions. One of the most compelling aspects of the narrative lies in its pacing, which allows moments of reflection to coexist with procedural urgency, and the early scenes often emphasize routine, paperwork, quiet observation, and the slow accumulation of clues, creating an atmosphere in which tension arises not from spectacle, but from the gradual realization that each case involves real lives and irreversible outcomes. And this approach makes the characters feel grounded in a reality where decisions are rarely simple and where the distinction between right and wrong is often blurred by circumstance. I remember watching an episode late at night years ago and being struck by how the dialogue avoided grand declarations in favor of measured conversations that revealed character through subtlety. And that memory returns whenever I revisit the series, because it demonstrates how effectively the show communicates the emotional weight of police work without resorting to melodrama, instead trusting the audience to notice the small gestures and pauses that convey uncertainty, regret, and determination. The central partnership functions as the emotional anchor of the series, and the interplay between experience and youth becomes a lens through which broader themes are explored, particularly the idea that being a good cop involves more than enforcing rules, requiring empathy, restraint, and the willingness to question one's own assumptions. And this dynamic is reflected in scenes where the younger detective pushes for swift action while the veteran insists on patience, creating a rhythm of tension and resolution that mirrors the process of investigation itself. And what makes these interactions compelling is the mutual respect that develops over time, transforming potential conflict into a source of growth for both characters. Visually, the show captures San Francisco with a sense of authenticity that enhances its narrative impact, using real locations and natural light to create an environment that feels immediate and tangible, and the decision to shoot on location rather than relying heavily on studio sets contributes to a sense of realism that reinforces the emotional stakes of each case. Because the city is not merely a backdrop but an active participant in the story, shaping the movement of characters and influencing the outcomes of their investigations. Thematically, A Good Cop, but examines the tension between idealism and pragmatism, suggesting that integrity is not a static trait, but a practice that must be reaffirmed through daily choices. And this idea resonates throughout the series as the detectives encounter situations that challenge their expectations, forcing them to balance professional duty with personal conscience. And what stands out is the show's refusal to offer easy resolutions, often concluding episodes with a sense of ambiguity that reflects the complexity of real-world justice, where closure is partial and consequences extend beyond the immediate case. There is a particular scene that lingers in my memory, one in which the detectives pause on a hillside overlooking the city after a long day of investigation, and the camera holds on their silhouettes against the fading light as they discuss not the details of the case, but the broader implications of their work. And in that quiet moment, the series articulates its central theme, that being a good cop involves carrying the weight of decisions that cannot be undone, and that the measure of professionalism lies not in certainty, but in the willingness to confront doubt with honesty. The performances throughout the series contribute significantly to its emotional resonance, with actors delivering understated portrayals that prioritize nuance over theatricality. And the chemistry between the leads allows for moments of humor and camaraderie to emerge naturally, providing relief from the heavier themes without undermining their seriousness, and this balance between gravity and warmth helps sustain the viewer's engagement over time, making the characters feel like companions rather than distant figures on a screen. In comparing the streets of San Francisco to other police dramas of its era, what distinguishes it is its emphasis on character-driven storytelling and its willingness to explore the psychological dimensions of law enforcement, avoiding the simplistic heroism that often define the genre and instead presenting its protagonists as individuals shaped by their environment and experiences, and this approach aligns it more closely with later series that would adopt a similarly introspective tone, suggesting that its influence extends beyond its original broadcast period. Reflecting on the show from a contemporary perspective, it is striking how relevant its themes remain, particularly in its exploration of accountability and the relationship between authority and community, and while the cultural context has evolved, the fundamental questions it raises about fairness, responsibility, and the human cost of policing continue to resonate, making it a work that invites ongoing reflection rather than passive consumption. I find myself thinking about how the series captures the quiet moments between major events, the pauses in conversation, the lingering looks, the unspoken recognition of shared responsibility, and these elements create a sense of authenticity that elevates the narrative beyond conventional procedural storytelling, transforming it into a meditation on the nature of duty and the complexities of human behavior. The title, A Good Cop, but encapsulates this tension perfectly, acknowledging that even those who strive to do right must confront their limitations, and that the pursuit of justice often involves navigating gray areas where clarity is elusive, and this recognition does not diminish the character's integrity but rather deepens it, because it suggests that true professionalism involves acknowledging imperfection and continuing to act with fairness despite it. As the series progresses, the accumulation of experiences shapes the detectives in subtle ways, influencing how they approach new cases and interact with one another. And this gradual evolution reinforces the idea that character is formed through repetition and reflection rather than sudden transformation, creating a sense of continuity that rewards attentive viewing. Revisiting the series now, I am struck by how its deliberate pacing and emphasis on atmosphere create a viewing experience that feels almost contemplative, encouraging the audience to engage with the material thoughtfully rather than passively. And this quality makes it particularly rewarding for those who appreciate storytelling that prioritizes depth over spectacle. In the end, The Streets of San Francisco stands as a testament to the enduring appeal of narratives that explore the human dimensions of professional life, and A Good Cop, but serves as a reminder that integrity is not defined by the absence of conflict, but by the willingness to face it with honesty and care. And as the final scenes of each episode fade into the city's ambient glow, the viewer is left with a sense of quiet reflection, an awareness that the work of maintaining justice and trust is ongoing, shaped by countless decisions made in moments both ordinary and extraordinary, and that the true strength of the series lies in its ability to capture that ongoing process with empathy, restraint, and a deep respect for the complexities of human experience.